Australia's housing market is getting tougher and tougher to crack, with rising demand and growing prices. The problem is that competition isn't always genuine. Right across the country, real estate agents are baiting buyers into auction with property price guides well below the expected sale price. And that can make some buyers feel disappointed and even disenchanted. Stacey Leone is the founder of the Sydney Cell, and she runs awareness and education workshops about navigating the property market. She joins me now live in the studio. Stacey, what is price baiting or underquoting?
Deanna, good afternoon. Underquoting happens when an agent advertises a property for less than the seller is actually willing to accept, and that's often well below recent comparable sales. But what it does do there is, as you mentioned in the introduction, it causes disenchantment, disengagement by buyers in the marketplace, frustration, confusion, and ultimately, in a really hot property market like Sydney, it just leaves purchasers feeling like they can't win.
Now, but why do agents do it?
Look, there's a number of reasons why agents underquote, and the truth is that low price guides attract more clicks, they get more open house traffic and more competition. So think of it this way: if an agent lists a property at $1.8 million, for example, they might get 15 groups through the open house. If they list the same property at $1.5 million, 60 buyers will show up. So you can see that more people equals more perceived demand, and that equals higher emotional engagement. It's all about creating competition as the agent.
Now, I just wanted to ask, how can you tell if an agent is price baiting?
Oh, look, there's plenty of ways that you can tell that an agent is price baiting. So oftentimes the price guide doesn't match the comparable sales evidence. So agents will give you a number of recent sales to support their price guide, but I wouldn't trust that. They handpick sales that fall into line with what they want to guide. So do your own research and be sure to compare apples with apples. I mean, a classic sign of price baiting is when the guide suddenly increases during the campaign. So, for example, at the start of the campaign, the agent might be quoting 1.5 to 1.8. Now that means, they might be guiding 1.5, but then through the campaign that jumps up to 1.8. So that clearly means that the agent started the campaign too low and the property is now attracting interest at the right level. So, and oftentimes too, I've seen agents that will actually condition their owners to start with a lower price guide. I mean, I've heard countless agents sit around in office sales meetings telling the rest of us how they conditioned their owner to start lower in order to boost traffic early in the campaign. And a lot of, vendors don't feel very comfortable with that, as you can imagine. There's another way that you can tell if an agent is underquoting, and it's often in the language that they use, Deanna. So if you ask the agent, well, what price would buy it today? Or, what level is the vendor hoping for? And the agent responds quite vaguely. Well, that's pretty much a red flag right there. So, the public, to a large degree, and this is the problem, the public to a large degree doesn't understand the very subtle differences in language that they're hearing. For example, an agent can say, we have interest around X price. But in saying that, they're not actually giving you an actual price guide. So therein lies the difference. They have to be more explicit. If they say to you the price guide is X, then that is a lot clearer and clears up a lot of the confusion for buyers.
Now, don't the penalties that we hear in different states around the country, don't they prevent agents from underquoting?
They are supposed to. But the reality is that the Department of Fair Trading is grossly under-resourced. And so, I have heard whispers that the Fair Trading is going to implement some new rules or guidelines to help cut some of that out. But right now, until they actually get those ducks in a row, there is very little that can be done. And a lot of the agents that are out there, Deanna, they would rather just pay a penalty and write it off as the cost of doing business. And I've heard agents say that in my experience.
They'd rather keep doing this and, these types of practices.
They would. And look, the penalties just aren't tough enough right now. The penalties aren't tough enough. And in my view, principals and directors of real estate agencies need to set the tone for all this. There is one side of the coin is, yes, fair trading have a place in terms of setting the standards and guidelines for it. But principals and directors, they run sales meetings weekly with their agents. We all sit around in a group huddle and we listen to the boss telling us what to do, what not to do. And if principals and directors were more stringent in, eyeballing those agents and saying, look, this is how our agency operates.
Oh, yeah.
This, the fish rots at the head, as they say. So, and particularly for young agents who are coming into the industry, the bar is set very low. There are the educational requirements to become a real estate agent in Australia are very low. So young agents coming to the business, they lack life experience. They need as much help as possible in knowing where those guide rails are, in knowing how this is how our agency treats our customers. This is the level of respect, that we employ in the marketplace. So if the principal is not modelling that behaviour, then you can be sure that their younger agents coming up through the ranks are not going to either.
Absolutely. Some interesting insight there. Now, finally, Stacey, what is your advice for consumers?
Well, look, it's pretty boring. I know everyone says this, but I'll say it again. Do your research. That's the bottom line. Go to realestate.com, go to domain.com, see what similar properties have sold for in the last 6 to 12 months. And the one caveat I would put around that is make sure that you're comparing apples with apples. So don't try and compare, the sale price of a one-bedroom unit that's got that's south-facing and doesn't have any parking with a three-bedroom apartment that's north-facing and has 2 car spaces. You've got to make sure that you are comparing apples with apples. The second thing is, I would say, dedicate a chunk of time. So tell your friends, I'm sorry, I'm not going to see you for the next couple of months because I'm going to be wearing out some boot leather on the streets, looking at properties, getting a feel for the marketplace, taking some personal notes of what things are guiding for versus what the actual sale prices are. And also, I would say to you as a buyer, don't tell the agent anything that they don't need to know because we will use it against you.
There you go. Now, Stacey Leone has joined me now on ABC News Radio. Thank you very much for your insights into the practice of price baiting in Australia. That was Stacey Leone. She's a founder of the Sydney Cell and she runs awareness and education workshops about navigating the property market.